It all started 6 months ago when Erica first encountered Jason at a networking mixer hosted by a mid-tier local marketing company. Erica, a driven and sharp-tongued project manager in real estate, immediately found herself intrigued by Jason's smooth confidence and quick humor. Their back and forth was effortless, almost too easy, igniting a spark neither of them saw coming. By the end of the night, they had swapped numbers under the pretense of talking shop. At first, their texts were harmless, chats about the industry, shared memes about corporate monotony, and the occasional witty remark. But the tone shifted. Jason confessed he felt suffocated in a lifeless marriage, while Erica, never one to hide her dissatisfaction, admitted she felt invisible and unappreciated at home. Their mutual discontent became the glue that pulled them closer, and what started as casual banter quickly morphed into a deeper emotional attachment. Erica's domestic life, while outwardly stable, had long since become a dull routine. Her husband, Mark, dependable to a fault, was more focused on logistics and their 3 kids than on her. The passion that once existed between them had dwindled into monotony, and Erica, restless and bitter, found herself craving something, anything, that felt alive. She knew she should feel guilty, but honestly, the excitement she felt every time Jason messaged her completely eclipsed any guilt. Jason, a magnetic sales exec with a flair for storytelling, would often regale her with tales of his wild, untethered youth spent exploring exotic corners of the globe. Those stories stirred something in Erica. They lit a fire, painting vivid images of a life far removed from her bland, suburban reality. Then Jason floated the idea of a getaway to Bali, of all places. A place he described as enchanting, almost otherworldly. Erica hesitated at first, torn between temptation and responsibility. But eventually, the fantasy became too compelling to ignore. As they planned the escape, Erica crafted a believable excuse. She told Mark she had to attend an out-of-state professional development workshop, and she made arrangements for their children to stay with his parents. Every detail she plotted added to the high, a thrilling, almost cinematic sense of rebellion. The night before they were set to leave, Erica sat alone in her home office, staring at a letter she had drafted for Mark. It was a contingency plan, written just in case her secret ever came to light. The letter spoke warmly of her love for him and their life together, but also hinted at her desire for space, growth, and independence. After a long pause, she tucked it into an envelope and slid it under his pillow. She had no idea that this one small act would trigger a cascade of consequences neither she nor Jason could stop. The next morning, Erica and Jason found themselves sitting side by side in a busy airport lounge, waiting to board their flight to Bali. After weeks of coordination and growing anticipation, their little fantasy was finally about to become reality. Erica, drained from a sleepless night of last-minute packing and nerves, leaned against Jason, clutching his hand and closing her eyes. The promise of 2 weeks filled with luxury, indulgence, and zero responsibilities felt like exactly what she needed. But then, ding, Jason's phone lit up. He glanced at it and casually reminded her, "Don't forget to set your phone to airplane mode." "I didn't bring it," Erica replied, brushing it off with a shrug. Jason's expression stiffened as he read the message. His face lost its ease. "Jason Carr, touch that woman, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Erica immediately picked up on a shift. "What's going on?" she asked, a knot forming in her chest. Jason silently handed her the phone. She read the message, eyes narrowing. "You've got to be kidding me. Jason, you should have told your wife." "She already knows," he muttered, trying to keep his voice even. He explained how he'd told his wife he was going to a 2-week conference and had packed his things while she slept. "There's no way anyone knows about us," he insisted, attempting to sound sure of himself. "You really believe that?" Erica asked, her tone laced with suspicion. "Yes," Jason said firmly, but the way his eyes darted around the lounge betrayed his nerves. He suggested they each reach out to their partners, just to make sure everything was fine. Jason called his wife. She didn't answer, so he left a light-hearted voicemail. Erica, on the other hand, flat out refused to contact Mark. Their conversation was interrupted by the boarding announcement. As they got in line, the easy intimacy they'd shared had all but vanished, replaced by an awkward silence. Jason kept scanning the terminal, as if expecting someone to show up and call them out. On the plane, Erica nestled her head against Jason's shoulder and wrapped her arm around his. Trying to shake off the tension, Jason asked, "Why didn't you bring your phone?" "It's all part of the plan," Erica replied cryptically. "You'll understand soon enough." Once they reached cruising altitude, Erica pulled out her laptop, opened a document, and handed it to Jason. I've been thinking a lot about this, she said softly. It's a letter for my husband. He'll find it tonight. It gives him 2 weeks to decide what kind of life he wants with me. The letter read, Dear husband, for the past 25 years, I've loved you deeply. The life we've built together, the family, the memories, the quiet strength of our bond, it all means the world to me. You've been a loyal partner, and I'm grateful for everything we've shared. But there's something I need to say. For years, I've poured myself into our family, always putting everyone else first. And now, I need to ask for something for myself. I didn't go away on a business trip. I want to take time for reflection, away from distractions, away from confrontation. I didn't bring my phone because I want you to read this and truly sit with it. I still love you. You are my foundation. But I'm asking for your blessing to explore emotional and physical connections outside our marriage, discreetly, respectfully, and without disrupting our life. If you agree, I promise to protect our relationship and never let it interfere with our family or public life. If you don't, I'll respect your decision, and we'll go on as we always have. Take these 2 weeks to think about it. I trust you'll choose with love and thoughtfulness. When Jason finished reading, he looked up at Erica with a stunned expression. Wow, Erica said, flashing a smug smile. It's good, right? She tilted her head with a gleam in her eye. I might have borrowed a few lines from a story on an erotic fiction site. Just polished it a bit. Gave it heart. Jason raised a brow. And this is your idea of a future investment? Exactly, Erica replied without missing a beat. I'm giving Mark the opportunity to be okay with this. If he says yes, I don't have to feel like a villain. If he says no, well, at least I'll know I tried. She leaned in slightly. And let's be honest, finding another man who ticks the boxes like you? That would take effort. Jason narrowed his eyes. You actually believe he might say yes? Absolutely. I spun it in a way that makes it seem like his decision. If he says no, we keep going quietly. If he says yes, I get freedom with a blessing. He'll think he's in charge. Jason frowned, clearly uncomfortable. It still reads like you're telling him he's not enough. That's not something men handle well. He'll either blow up or completely shut down. You don't get it, Erica said, brushing off his concern. Mark thinks honesty is everything. This is a controlled risk. Jason studied her closely, a chill settling in. He wasn't new to deception, but Erica's surgical coldness was something else. She seemed disturbingly detached from the emotional fallout. So, what happened in that story you borrowed from? Erica's grin vanished. The husband kicked her out. She realized she'd made a massive mistake. The mood shifted instantly. Sensing her unease, Jason changed the subject. I saw something weird at the terminal. This guy kept staring at me. When I met his eyes, he made a throat-slashing gesture. Creeped me out. Erica straightened. What did he look like? Tall, over 6 feet. Dark hair, maybe a goatee. Just a regular guy, Jason replied with a shrug. Erica silently opened her laptop and pulled up a photo, her standing beside a man in front of a home. Her voice trembled slightly. Was it him? Jason squinted. I don't know. Could have been. I'm not sure. Erica didn't buy it. She watched him intently, trying to figure out if he was being honest or simply trying to keep her calm. Had her husband found out? Was Jason hiding something? What was he wearing? She asked. Jason sighed, visibly annoyed. Erica, most guys don't catalog what other guys are wearing. I didn't pay attention. Still, she pressed on. Didn't you say Mark dropped you off at the domestic terminal? Yeah, but I waited until he drove off before I took the shuttle to the international side, Jason said. He'd have to park, go inside, and somehow find me through security. That's a stretch. Erica didn't respond, her gut churning. Something about Jason's answers didn't sit right. Either she was getting paranoid, or her husband was already 2 steps ahead of her. Trying to steer things away, Jason pointed to the photo. That your house? Yeah, Erica said distantly. We bought the land years ago as an investment. Mark spent over 15 years building it, custom everything. Every room has a theme. He even built around a natural creek running under the property. The place has won architectural awards. Jason nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone, maybe Mark, was already in motion. They drifted into talking about family, something they usually avoided. Jason shared stories about his 2 young kids, ages 6 and 8. Erica mentioned hers, Jenna, 23, a newly minted real estate attorney, and her sons, Ethan, 16, and Miles, 13. But even as she spoke, her mind was elsewhere. Beneath the surface, she was scanning for weaknesses, running through worst-case scenarios. If everything blew up, What did she need to protect? Her kids? The house? Her reputation? She retraced the days leading up to their departure. Thursday night, she'd packed methodically, choosing clothes that matched her conference story. Mark hadn't acted suspicious. In fact, he'd been unusually affectionate. Friday had been textbook. She left for work, asked Mark to pick her up since her company car was in the shop. They ate lunch with the kids, dropped the boys at their grandparents' later, and spent a quiet evening together. Saturday morning, she rushed him out after helping her check her bags. Normally, he lingered. This time, he didn't. That had felt like a win. Now, she wondered if it had been something else. Did he know? She kept reassuring herself. He didn't know her colleagues. No one at work knew the truth about Bali. The creepy message Jason got? Probably someone's idea of a prank. The man at the terminal? Just a stranger with bad manners. Even if Mark was suspicious, the letter she left was her shield. It painted the trip as personal reflection, a work getaway with a colleague. Not an affair. No proof. Still, she wasn't about to gamble everything. On the flight, she drafted a message to Jenna. Claimed she forgot her phone, asked her daughter to activate Jason's number for emergency contact. Said she'd bought a prepaid device for the trip. Then she gave her real instruction, retrieve the letter from under Mark's pillow. She described it as deeply personal, meant for his eyes only. Erica trusted Jenna's loyalty and believed she wouldn't pry. Once they landed in Bali, Erica quickly sent the email and used Jason's phone to call home. No answer. Hours passed. As they checked into the hotel, her unease kept growing. Finally, Jenna called back using Jason's phone. She confirmed she'd done everything her mother asked. Then she hesitated. Her voice dropped. Mom, there's something weird. Jenna's voice was tied over the phone. Dad took Ethan and Miles to the cabin. He sounded distracted earlier, said he needed some space to think. I'm driving up later tonight. Erica stopped cold. The cabin. Her husband hadn't mentioned a word about it. That place was isolated, no cell service, no internet, no casual drop-ins. The kind of silence that gave someone time to piece things together. Her stomach flipped. She ended the call abruptly, unable to process what this meant. No questions, no explanations. Just panic buried under a mask of control. At the cabin, Mark stood by the grill, flipping burgers while the boys begged for a camping trip the next day, something about hunting wallabies for stew. But even the kids noticed his mind was elsewhere. Jenna, watching him closely, waited until dinner to gently bring it up. Is this about Mom? She asked. Mark exhaled heavily. Yeah, it is. He paused, looking not like the steady, upbeat father they knew, but like a man carrying something heavy. She's been distant for a while. And after yesterday and this morning, I've started connecting some very troubling dots. The air grew thick with tension. She told me she was flying overseas for a 2-week training course, he said. I'm guessing she told you all the same thing? The kids nodded in unison. Yesterday, I picked her up from work. While waiting, I saw her talking to a man in his office. Their body language was familiar, not professional. She didn't come out for over 5 minutes. He looked at Jenna. His name is Jason Carr. I saw his picture on the wall and grabbed his business card from the front desk. Something felt off. He continued, quieter now. This morning, I couldn't sleep. I checked her purse. Found her passport, Indonesian visa, issued 3 weeks ago. I remembered her flipping through a Bali brochure a while back. He looked at each of them slowly. Bali's in Indonesia, not interstate. So she lied. Jenna hesitated. But accusing someone of cheating, that's serious. I know, he said. That's why I haven't said anything until now. She nodded solemnly. You and Mom always taught us. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Respect people. That's what makes this harder, Mark replied, voice thick with emotion. He went on. This morning, your mom asked me to drop her at the domestic terminal and leave. That was odd. Usually, I'd stay until she boarded. But I didn't leave. I drove to the international terminal. He paused. I saw Jason Carr check in. 15 minutes later, your mom showed up. Same airline. Same destination. I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Jenna's voice cracked. Do you think she's? Yes, he cut in quietly. I believe your mother flew to Bali to meet him. For an affair. His voice broke. He turned away, trying to compose himself. Ethan walked up first and wrapped his arms around his father. The others followed. Jenna stepped back, searching his face. What are you going to do, Daddy? She asked softly. Mark shook his head. I honestly don't know. If she's crossed that line, it's over. Fidelity isn't negotiable. Even if nothing physical happened. I'm not sure I can look past this level of deception. He rubbed his eyes. I sent them a message. Told them if they cross the line, if they touch, there will be consequences. I needed time. Jenna blinked. Dad. Mom left her phone at home. Mark froze. What number did she give you to reach her? Jenna opened her phone and read the digits aloud. Mark finished the last 4, matching them to Jason Carr's card. That one simple confirmation sucked the air from the room. There's more, Jenna added quietly. She told me to find a letter under her pillow and give it to you. She handed it over. Mark stared at the envelope, hesitant, then opened it. Before he could read, Miles broke the silence. Dad, this is about our family. You always said we handle things together. So read it to us. Moved, Mark began. One line in the 3rd paragraph hit like a blow. I'm going away for 2 weeks with a friend from work. I have never been unfaithful to you, and without your full blessing, I never will be. He stopped. The lie was in print. She claimed she'd never be unfaithful, yet she was already on the other side of the world with the man in question. They spent the next hour talking, turning Erica's words over like stones. Her letter, full of carefully phrased truths, suddenly read more like a legal defense. By the end, the mood had shifted. Something had broken. Mark tried to defend her. If she betrayed anyone, it was me. Don't let this change how you see her as your mom. Miles stood up straight, his voice firm. No, Dad. When she lied to all of us, she left this family. Mark stared at him, at the certainty in his eyes, and understood. His son wasn't angry. He was hurt, and that hurt had hardened into something final. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Erica made a surprising request, a private room on a different floor. She booked it for 2 nights with an option to extend. Just in case. Jason blinked, confused. Why? We planned this together. You'll understand soon, she said curtly. Unpack your things and meet me in the lobby in 2 hours. Jason obeyed, flustered and a little embarrassed. Later, when they met, Jason couldn't help but admire Erica's outfit, sleek, bold, almost theatrical. He forgot the awkwardness for a moment, hoping they were finally crossing that last line. Their month-long flirtation had been intense but mostly restrained. What's going on, Erica? He asked, trying to read her face. She crossed her arms. Think about it. You got a threatening text using your full name. Then a guy at the airport, who looked like Mark, made a throat-slashing gesture at you. Now my husband isn't answering his phone. He never ignores my calls. Something's wrong. Jason's brow furrowed. Yeah, it's weird. But how does that change anything? Erica stared at him. Jason, I think there's a strong chance, 80%, at least, that Mark knows we're here. She took a breath. If he finds out we slept together, it's over. I lose everything, my marriage, my home, my kids. But if he doesn't know, I can't explain coming home early without lying, and after 25 years of marriage, he'll sniff out a lie in seconds. Until I know for sure that Mark doesn't suspect a thing, we're not sleeping together. Jason looked crestfallen, but Erica cut him off with a sharp wave of her hand before he could protest. If you were my husband and suspected me of cheating, she asked, her tone almost academic, what would you do? Jason thought for a second. Easy. I'd hire a private investigator. She watched the realization dawn across his face. Exactly. Now you're catching on, she said coolly. Have you even tried calling your wife since we landed? Jason's eyes darted nervously around the hotel lobby, like he half expected a hidden camera crew to jump out. Erica didn't flinch. Stay away from my room. Don't touch me. If Mark calls, you notify me instantly, no improvising. She handed him a slip of paper. These are the numbers he might use. Then, as if concluding a business deal, she leaned in. Now give me a polite kiss on the cheek, and we'll part ways. Publicly friendly. That's it. Jason obliged. Moments later, they vanished into separate elevators, both glancing over their shoulders. Neither had thought to trace the number from Jason's threatening message. Had they done so, they might have realized Mark had already started connecting the dots. The next 4 days unfolded with tension and avoidance. Meals were taken in the hotel restaurant. They never touched, never kissed. They stayed in close proximity, just in case Mark called. Erica played the part of a patient strategist. She dragged Jason through boutiques and even organized a day trip on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Jason grew increasingly restless. On Monday, Erica bought a disposable phone and made Jason rehearse how to switch to it mid-conversation, should her husband somehow trace the call. Her anxiety deepened when Jenna suddenly stopped replying to emails. Erica convinced herself Mark had just extended his cabin trip with the kids, but the silence gnawed at her. By Tuesday night, Jason hit his limit. Quietly, he booked a different room, slipped away unnoticed, and spent the night with a Javanese escort, anything to reclaim control over a trip that had become a surveillance operation. Back at the hotel, Erica was spiraling. She buried herself in legal websites, scanning divorce laws, then emailed their family attorney asking for advice. He confirmed her suspicions. Yes, she could protect assets in advance of a formal split, but divorce wasn't his area of expertise. By Friday, convinced Mark knew everything, she acted. Her lawyer began locking down assets. She moved their final vacant property into a trust shared with Jenna, ensuring Mark wouldn't touch it. She didn't stop there. She created separate trusts for Ethan and Miles, each requiring dual signatures, one from the child once they turned 18, and one from an appointed guardian. Her lawyer, not she, would serve as that guardian. Another layer of insulation. With the financial chessboard secured, Erica finally exhaled. If she was wrong, she could undo the damage. But if she was right, she was already ahead. That night, for the first time all week, she actually slept. Then Saturday came, and everything unraveled. The first blow landed when Jason showed up at her door, breaking her rules. He confessed. His wife had gone radio silent, but she'd spoken to his brother, asked where to send divorce papers. She discovered he was on annual leave, not at a training seminar. She had likely told Mark everything. Jason, shaken and desperate, booked a flight home to salvage what he could. Erica walked him to the airport in silence, then returned alone to his now vacant room. The second hit came just hours later. A post popped up on Miles's Facebook account. "My parents are getting divorced." Erica's scream echoed through the hotel suite. What the hell is Mark doing? Divorce was supposed to involve conversations, explanations, not public declarations made through a child. Fury gave way to bitter reflection. Mark had supported her for years, stepping back from his career so she could advance hers. He handled the home, the kids, the day-to-day. And now, he was weaponizing the family against her. She silently begged for a sign. Anything to stop the avalanche before it crushed everything. When the panic passed, Erica tried to assess the damage with clear eyes. Someone, almost certainly Jason's wife, had exposed their trip. But if Jenna had broken her promise and shown Mark the letter, that would be catastrophic. Erica reopened the file. This time, she read it with a stranger's eyes. The contradictions were glaring. Half-truths laced with emotional manipulation. Sentences that once felt heartfelt now sounded desperate. She'd said she hadn't been unfaithful, but the implication, the secrecy, the travel arrangements, they all told another story. And then there was Mark's pride. His ego. He may not have had physical proof of betrayal, but that letter, paired with the circumstances, would leave no room for doubt. She clung to one final hope, that the private investigator Mark had likely hired would confirm she hadn't crossed the line. Not technically, at least. But even that might not matter. It struck her then, the irony of it all. She was the ideal wife on paper. Smart. Successful. Provider. But she'd gambled everything for a fantasy and escape. And now, not only had she lost her grip on her family, she hadn't even gotten what she wanted. No thrill. No freedom. No satisfaction. Still, she wasn't ready to let it end like this. Erica made arrangements to fly home early. She penned a vague, emotionally safe letter for Mark and emailed it to Jenna, asking her to print and deliver it. She scheduled a marriage counseling session for the day after her return, hoping to frame the affair as a misstep in search of growth. Back home, Jenna overheard a conversation between her father and their neighbor, Greg Winters, a lawyer. "So, other than telling Jason's wife, what else have you done?" Greg asked. "Nothing yet," Mark replied. "I want to hear from Erica first. Then I'll decide." Jenna snapped. "Dad, don't be naive. Mom's already moved money. Her lawyer made me sign a trust that locks you out of the family assets. She's draining everything." Mark stood frozen, the betrayal settling across his face like a storm cloud. Wordlessly, Jenna handed him a freshly printed letter. Mark read it, then handed it to Greg. It began, "Dear Jenna, please print the attached document and give it to your father. I trust your discretion not to read it," Erica had written. "This is personal, just between him and me. Dear Mark, I assume by now you know I lied about where I went and why. When I come home, I hope you'll let me explain, and that you'll listen with the patience you've always shown. Before you do anything rash, please remember 2 things. I love you, and only you. Always have. Always will. I have never been unfaithful. Since the day we became exclusive, I've remained loyal. I know my actions raised doubts. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove I'm telling the truth. Arrange a lie detector test. I'll take it and answer anything you ask. Once that's behind us, I'll apologize properly for the disrespect you feel I've shown. Divorce would destroy us. You'd lose the house you built, and we'd both lose our future and our peace. Think of the children. Divorce doesn't just split marriages, it breaks families. Please, let's talk when I return. With love, Erica. After reading the letter aloud, Greg, the family's neighbor and longtime attorney, set it down. If we didn't already know what she's done, he said, this would almost be convincing. Mark frowned. What are you saying? I've seen this pattern too many times, Greg said calmly. She wants out. Found a replacement. This trip was a test run. If you measured up, she'd quietly move assets, drive a wedge between you and the kids, then file for divorce. Mark shook his head. That sounds extreme. Greg leaned in. Let me prove it. Call the top 3 divorce lawyers in town. If any refuse to take your case, it likely means she's already hired them just to block you. It's a strategy one sees constantly. Skeptical but shaken, Mark made the calls. The first attorney declined, citing a full caseload. Mark didn't know it had nothing to do with Erica. He returned to the room and sighed. All right, Greg. What now? First, Greg said, freeze any account she doesn't already control. Cancel all joint credit cards. Lock down your finances now. Mark hesitated. I still want to believe she loves me. Then read the second half of her letter again, Greg said. Does that sound like someone protecting love or preparing for war? Jenna, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. Dad, are you sure she lied? Mark looked her in the eyes. Yes, I am. Would you lie to someone you love? She asked. No, he said softly. What are the 3 pillars of a relationship you always taught us? Mark repeated them automatically. Love, trust, respect. And how many of those do you still have with her? 1. And how many is she giving you now? Mark lowered his head. None. Exactly, Jenna said flatly. Her tone carried the weight of betrayal. Back in Bali, Erica tried to change her flight. Her card was declined. At the ATM, the same message, insufficient funds. She panicked. The hotel and meals were prepaid, and she had a few hundred in traveler's checks, but it wasn't enough for more than the basics. Asking her parents for help would raise questions she wasn't ready to answer. She messaged her lawyer to ask why her accounts were frozen, then resigned herself to a quiet, budget-conscious week. Alone in her room, Erica reflected on how fast her plan had fallen apart. She'd been so sure Mark would stay passive. She had believed, naively, that her secrecy would protect her. But now, everything was crumbling. Then came 2 emails that crushed her remaining confidence. The first was from Jason's wife, Maya. It was scathing, accusing her of destroying not just a marriage but a family. The second was from her daughter, Ethel. Attached was one of Erica's old emails to Jason. Why did you lie to us, Mom? Erica felt the floor fall out beneath her. Her children, her last line of defense, were turning against her. Even Jenna's silence had begun to feel like judgment. She quickly replied to Ethel, promising to explain everything when she returned. Ethel's reply hit like a punch. Strange that you chose to spend our vacation with another man instead of Dad or us. Erica avoided the beach for the rest of the week, not wanting to return with a tan that would confirm what her kids already suspected. She sent Jenna a long, meandering message framing everything as a cry for appreciation, not betrayal. She didn't apologize. Not really. And she still clung to the belief that being the family's breadwinner gave her leeway the others didn't have. At home, Mark gathered the kids. Unless we hear otherwise, she's due back Friday, he said. So, what do we do? Jenna didn't hesitate. Her latest letter made it clear. She sees us as obstacles. Unless she changes her tone, I'm done. Mark nodded. Harsh but fair. Ethan, he asked. She just doesn't understand us anymore, the boy said softly. I hope she learns, Mark said. Miles, I don't care what happens to her, the youngest said bluntly. I just want to stay with you. Mark smiled sadly and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I think your mother lost her way when she started focusing more on power than people, he said. But if she admits that and shows remorse, we owe it to ourselves to listen. If not, we reassess. Jenna sighed. All right, Dad. We'll try. But her letter? No regret. No accountability. I do believe she hasn't cheated, yet. But emotionally? She already walked away. Mark nodded. That's why I've planned a wake-up call. She needs to see what she's done, not just to me, but to all of us. He looked at each of his children. If she breaks down and apologizes, we'll talk. If not, we move on. Erica was caught off guard when she received a letter from Jenna addressed to Mark and the children. It included her return schedule and sent a chill through her. She was expected home late Friday night. Upon arrival, she would undergo a polygraph test, with questions submitted by each family member. Afterward, she'd stay in a motel for 2 nights to reflect. On Saturday afternoon, she could request a family meeting, if she felt ready. Though irritated at being told what to do, Erica decided to play along. She believed the test would clear her name, prove her physical fidelity, and give her the upper hand once more. She began imagining the questions. If they focused on whether she had sex with Jason or anyone else, she felt safe. But if they dug into her intentions or her emotional betrayals, the picture grew murkier. Her history with both Jason and Tyler could easily tip the scales. Knowing overthinking could trip the polygraph, she forced herself to stay calm. When she landed, she told no one her arrival time. She took a cab straight to the testing center. But there was no feeling of victory, only the weight of a plan that had slipped too far out of her grasp. At the center, the technician explained the process, then ran calibration questions. Finally, he asked, 2 weeks ago, did you travel to Bali intending to have extramarital sex with Jason Carr? Yes, Erica answered, voice even. The technician checked the readings, scribbled a note, and shut the machine. That's it, she asked. Just the one, he said. Likely written by your husband. He added, seems he doesn't care what happened in Bali. He wanted to confirm your intent. And to him, that's enough. He nodded toward a rack of divorce lawyer business cards at the front desk. Good luck, Mrs. Hale. Erica stood frozen. Her entire defense, her emphasis on what she hadn't done, had just collapsed. Her strategy hadn't addressed what mattered to Mark. Furious, she made an impulsive decision. She hailed a cab and went straight home, determined to speak to Mark face to face. As she neared the house, she didn't realize Mark, Ethan, and Miles were watching from a parked car across the street. They exchanged looks and quietly drove to the motel where Erica's reserved room was waiting. Their phones were turned off. Erica didn't reach out until late Monday, destroying any hope that she'd use the weekend to reflect. That night, Mark received a letter, hand-delivered by Jenna. It accused him of dragging the kids into their conflict and announced an emergency court hearing to address temporary custody of Ethaniel and Miles. Erica also scheduled a family counseling session and a Wednesday night meeting to discuss the future. Over the weekend, she had developed a 3-part strategy: save the marriage through counseling, use family sessions to reframe the narrative with the children, and secure legal leverage in case divorce became unavoidable. She even selected a female counselor, believing it might subtly tilt things in her favor. On Tuesday, Erica sat alone in the counselor's office when Mark arrived. The counselor welcomed him warmly and motioned them to opposite chairs. After brief introductions, Erica insisted on using her first name. Mark stuck with Mr. Hale. Erica spoke first. I was a faithful wife and mother until I made a terrible mistake. I lied. I went on a date with another man. There was no sex, but the intent was there. I regret my actions and want to move forward. The counselor nodded and turned to Mark. My kid's biggest problem isn't Bali. It's the lies, he said. She left us during family time and deliberately cut off contact. She left her phone behind on purpose. He glanced at Erica. And no, I didn't hire anyone to spy on her. I didn't even want to believe she was seeing someone, until our youngest daughter hacked her email and found the messages. I only canceled the credit cards after Jenna found out Erica was trying to cut me out of the family finances. Erica stared in shock. Her daughters had discovered everything, and they viewed it as betrayal. Mark's tone darkened. As for her reasons for coming here today, I don't believe a word she says. The counselor asked gently, what do you hope to achieve today? I want to understand, Mark said, why my wife thought it was okay to lie and plan to sleep with another man. At that moment, there was still a fragile chance to fix things, until the counselor muttered under her breath, oh, we've got a dinosaur. Mark froze. The subtle bias was all he needed to hear. Without a word, he stood and walked out. Erica didn't chase him. Instead, she turned on the counselor, venting her frustration until she was left alone in the room. The counselor later apologized and convinced Erica to schedule another session. She also reached out to Mark, offering him a solo appointment. But the damage had been done. Wednesday evening's family meeting didn't go any better. Erica invited everyone for dinner beforehand, but Jenna declined coldly, reminding her mother, you can't cook. The kids arrived at 7:30 p.m. Erica moved to hug them, but each pulled away. They sat together on the couch, leaving her alone across the room. She tried to coax Jenna to sit beside her. Jenna refused. Undeterred, Erica launched into a carefully prepared speech. But it was short on apologies and long on justification. She spoke of feeling unappreciated, of the routine boredom of being the breadwinner, of missing the admiration she used to receive as a single woman. She admitted she had craved attention and gave in to the flattery of a younger man. But as she spoke, she could feel it. The cold, unreadable expressions on their faces didn't shift. Her family wasn't listening anymore. They were done. Trust had been broken, and there was no repairing it. As Erica delivered her speech, she fixated on Ethan and Miles, avoiding Mark entirely. Across from her, Jenna sat with a notepad, scribbling notes with visible irritation. The room grew heavy with silence until Jenna finally snapped. "Damn, Mom. You've let me down. Again." Erica blinked. "What? Why?" Jenna didn't look up. "I'd give your speech an 85 on the cliché scale. If you'd added, 'No one gets hurt if they don't find out,' it would have been a perfect score." Erica flushed, uncertain whether it was anger or embarrassment. It hit her then. None of her children were going to side with her, not while Mark still held their trust. Her expression hardened. "Mark," she said sharply. "To the kitchen. Now." Behind the closed door, her voice dropped to a hiss. "Does it really have to come to this? Me breaking you until you're begging for forgiveness?" Mark shook his head, wearied by her aggression. "No. If you'd done what was right, none of this would have been necessary. If you dropped that counselor and I'll see you in court, Erica," he cut in, and walked away. On Thursday, Mark moved into a modest 3-bedroom rental, knowing things wouldn't resolve anytime soon. He soon learned the custody hearing for Ethel and Miles was set for Tuesday. After hearing which judge had been assigned, Mark called Greg, who warned him the judge had a history of siding against fathers. Even so, Mark declined legal representation and chose to represent himself. Greg offered advice throughout the weekend, helping him understand court procedure while Mark prepared his case with care. He focused on what mattered most, his children. That weekend, he transformed the rental into a home. Around the dinner table, he shared his plans with Ethan and Miles, who lit up at the chance to help build their new life. On Tuesday, Erica's attorney was surprised to learn Mark would be representing himself. He recognized the potential challenge. Under direct questioning, Erica might unravel. Due to court delays, only procedural matters were addressed that day. The real hearing resumed on Wednesday, and by then, word had spread. Local reporters arrived, buzzing with curiosity. Erica's attorney began with financials, property ownership, income comparisons, legal leverage. When it was Mark's turn to question Erica, her composure visibly slipped. He stood with measured calm. "Erica, I built our family home myself. Is that correct?" "Yes," she replied, subdued. "I was the primary earner while you returned to work 2 months after each child was born?" "Yes," she said again, not meeting his eyes. "And who handled the daily care? Breakfasts, school lunches, dinner?" Erica shifted. "I worked long hours," she said defensively. "So would you say I was the primary caregiver?" "Probably," she admitted. Then Mark's tone sharpened. "You lied to me and our children. Then you flew to Bali for 2 weeks to be with another man. Isn't that true?" Erica's attorney jumped in. "Objection, irrelevant. Infidelity doesn't factor into custody decisions." Mark remained composed. "Your Honor, I'm not arguing infidelity. I'm questioning character as it relates to parental fitness." The judge paused, then nodded. "Overruled." Erica bristled. "I went to Bali on vacation and happened to go with a male friend," she said, her voice tight. Mark lifted a printed letter. "Before you left this for me, correct?" Without waiting, he read it aloud, his voice echoing in the hushed courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Erica said nothing, her silence louder than any denial. Mark pressed once more. "Upon returning, did you apologize to your husband or your children for lying and for your intentions?" Still nothing. Erica stared straight ahead, her expression unreadable. Mark turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this is simple. I've been our children's primary caregiver. I built the home they grew up in. I've never lied, never abandoned them. I'm requesting full custody and a pause on my wife's influence until trust can be reestablished." He sat down, his back to Erica. She glared, seething. The judge wasted no time. "Temporary custody in the family home," she ruled, "will go to the mother. Precedent favors maternal continuity." Erica smiled triumphantly. Mark, unfazed, stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to cite case law. In your prior rulings, you emphasized continuity with the primary caregiver." He referenced precedents, data, and studies disproving the default assumption that children are always better off with their mother. Then he said quietly, "Tell me honestly, does a man with a conscience stand a chance in your courtroom?" The judge, startled, quickly closed the session. On his way out, Mark handed printed copies of Erica's letter to the press. He didn't look back. Erica's attorney congratulated her, but the wind felt hollow. Mark's words, about her lack of remorse, cut deep. Instead of reflecting, Erica went on the offensive. Her instinct was always to fight. Mark, acting on Jenna's advice, escalated things further. He filed a complaint with the federal court president, citing judicial bias. That weekend, he moved fully into the rental with the kids. They painted walls, picked new furniture, and built routines together. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. In court, Mark's composed questioning underscored two truths. He had always been the primary caregiver, and Erica had lied, repeatedly. Her discomfort was obvious, and reporters wasted no time capturing the tension. When Mark read Erica's damning letter aloud, she said nothing. Her silence only deepened the damage. He closed with quiet resolve. "Your Honor, I've always cared for our children. My wife's recent actions prove she lacks the character to positively influence them. Custody should remain with me." The next morning's headlines were brutal. Articles criticized not only Erica's conduct, but also the judge's decision to award her temporary custody. At home, Erica's relationship with the children continued to unravel. Though they were required to spend time with her, they did so reluctantly. Conversation was minimal. They refused affection. Erica, overwhelmed by simple parenting duties, resorted to giving them canteen money instead of preparing lunches. In a solo counseling session, Erica finally laid out conditions for considering reconciliation with Mark. She confessed to 2 prior emotional entanglements, stressing there had been no sex, though omitting that this wasn't by choice. She couldn't understand why Mark was so offended. In her view, intent didn't matter if nothing physical had happened. The counselor gently but firmly told her that reconciliation was unlikely. Mark, she explained, was focused on Erica's repeated dishonesty and emotional betrayal. The next day, Mark's session was brief. He gave the counselor a choice: refer them to someone impartial or declare the marriage irretrievable. Fearing professional fallout, the counselor chose the latter and formally reported the dissolution. Later that week, a police officer arrived at Mark's home to enforce the court order. But Ethel and Miles refused to go. When Erica arrived, expecting cooperation, she was met with stony silence. "Mark," she said, "just tell the kids to come with me. Give me the house, and I'll be generous with visitation and property division." Mark stood his ground. "I won't force them into something that violates their sense of right and wrong. Mark, I'm not a bad person. You know me." "No," he said coldly. "I don't. The woman I married wouldn't have done this. She wouldn't have betrayed me, shown no remorse, and tried to bully her way out of consequences. And now I've learned about your 2 earlier affairs." His words hit her like a slap. Her face burned with a mix of anger and guilt. Realizing the counselor had told him, she lashed out. "She wasn't allowed to tell you that," Erica snapped, her voice cracking. Mark didn't respond. He simply turned away as Erica stormed out of the house. Later that evening, Mark quietly deleted the recording Ethan had placed in Erica's purse before the counseling session. He didn't need it anymore. Justice, he believed, would catch up. And it did. 3 days later, the counselor was dismissed. On Saturday, Children's Services returned to enforce custody. Again, Ethel and Miles refused. Then the courts were wrong, Ethel told the officers. "We won't live with someone who hurt our father." The officers left, unable to resolve the standoff. Erica spent the next week making desperate attempts to reconnect with her children, calls, texts, messages, but they ignored them all. Even her efforts to speak to Mark failed. The moment he sensed she wasn't genuinely apologizing, he ended the conversation. Frustrated, Mark hired Greg as his divorce attorney. With Jenna's help, he uncovered that Erica was already planning another business trip. Mark took time off work, dedicating himself to helping the children adjust, heal, and plan for their future. When Erica returned the following Friday, what she found stunned her. The award-winning house she had cherished, the one Mark had built with care, was gone. In its place stood a damaged structure, purchased from an insurance auction. Inside, her belongings had been neatly packed. The locks were changed. On the floor was a copy of the title deed. It confirmed she still owned the land, but the home on it no longer belonged to her. She called her lawyer in a panic, only to learn the arrangement was completely legal. Realizing Jenna had assumed control of the family trusts, Erica seethed. She had assumed her children would choose her. Consumed by fury and self-pity, she wrote them a letter. "Do you really hate me that much?" Mark responded simply, "We don't hate you, but you knew I'd always protect our family, even from you." On Monday, Erica received Mark's divorce filing at work. At first glance, the settlement appeared generous. She retained full ownership of their jointly acquired property. But then came the deductions, the Bali trip, court fees, and financial penalties for her covert asset transfers. Custody would be decided by the children's preferences, with Miles acting as the tiebreaker. Erica attempted to revoke the children's trusts, only to be told by her advisor that it was impossible. "He planned everything perfectly," the advisor admitted, almost admiringly. She tried to hire a new counselor, but since the original had declared the marriage irretrievable, Mark's consent was required, and he refused. He reminded her that he had asked for a neutral therapist weeks earlier. She had refused. Now, it was too late. Backed into a corner, Erica finally signed the divorce agreement. Though she retained custody on paper and maintained access to the children's trusts as their guardian, she lost the second parcel of land and other high-value assets. The divorce proceeded swiftly, leaving her to face the fallout alone. Her attorney reassured her the case would remain under the same family court judge, one notoriously biased in favor of mothers. "I usually advise male clients not to fight under this judge," he added. Feeling reassured, Erica allowed herself to relax. In her mind, she had won. She even imagined returning to Mark's life one day, magnanimous, victorious, and in control. Or perhaps she would leave him in the ashes of what she assumed was his new poverty. A month later, Erica stepped into the courtroom brimming with confidence, until her lawyer pulled her aside and pointed discreetly. A woman in a sharp suit sat quietly in the gallery. "She works for the chief federal judge," he whispered. "Something's up, and I don't like it." The judge opened proceedings with a jarring announcement. She was taking early retirement. Her tone was bitter, her demeanor stiff. As the hearing began, Erica's lawyer objected to Mark's request that she cover legal fees, proposing they each pay their own. But Greg, Mark's attorney, calmly stated he was working pro bono. The tide quickly turned. Greg presented irrefutable evidence of Mark's role as the children's primary caregiver. Erica's lawyer, counting on the judge's usual leniency, was unprepared. The judge, glancing frequently at the observer from the federal court, appeared restrained, almost unwilling. Her ruling awarded Mark full custody and commended his fairness in the property division. Erica barely registered the sound of the gavel. Back in her one-bedroom apartment, Erica felt the crushing weight of it all. She had one final task: finalize the sale of her original property. She had listed it expecting a lucrative outcome, but the uniquely landscaped lot, built for a specific home style, fetched a modest price. At the title transfer meeting, she waited alone until a familiar vehicle pulled up. Mark stepped out. Behind him, trucks arrived, carrying the disassembled house he had built. He was the buyer. Stunned, Erica turned and left without a word. Later, she stared at the meager check, the remains of a life she had once ruled. Reaching for her thought journal, she scribbled in red ink. "Next time you get an itch, go to a pharmacy. Next time you mess up, apologize. You're twice as smart as you think, but not as clever as you hoped." 8 weeks later, Erica decided to extend an olive branch. She bought a bottle of champagne and drove back to what had once been her home. The golden label shimmered beside her in the passenger seat as she rehearsed her speech, imagining a gracious reception. A new beginning, maybe, one rooted in humility. But as she turned into the driveway, she froze. The house Mark had rebuilt looked as pristine as ever. It stood as a monument to his quiet strength and her misjudgment. She knocked. Jenna answered, expression guarded but not hostile. "Hi, Mom," she said flatly, stepping aside. Inside, the dining table was set. Mark and the boys moved around the kitchen, laughing. The warmth of the scene hit Erica like a wall. She handed the champagne to Jenna, who took it silently. Mark looked up, his expression unreadable, no anger, but no affection. "Erica," he said with a nod. "I wanted to say congratulations. The house looks amazing," she began, her voice faltering. "Thanks," Mark replied, returning to the table without further comment. Undeterred, Erica cleared her throat. "I also came to apologize." The room fell quiet. "I've made so many mistakes. I hurt all of you, and I'm sorry. Truly. I hope, maybe, someday, you can forgive me." Miles's voice broke the silence. "Why did you do it, Mom? Didn't we matter to you?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "You mattered more than anything," she said, trembling. "I just lost sight of that." I thought I needed something different, something more. But I was wrong. You all deserved better. Jenna crossed her arms. So, what now? You say sorry and everything goes back to normal. Erica shook her head. No, I don't expect that. I just want the chance to show you I'm trying to be better. Mark finally spoke, his tone calm but firm. Erica, it's good that you're reflecting. But trust doesn't come back just because you say sorry. It takes time, if it's even possible. I understand, Erica said quietly. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I've started therapy. I joined a support group for people who've made mistakes like mine. I'm trying to figure out how I let it get this far. The sincerity in her voice hung in the air. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ethan said softly, "It's good you're doing that. But words won't fix things, Mom. Actions matter." I know, she replied. And I'm ready to prove it. Mark stood and walked to the door. Thank you for coming, Erica. Take care of yourself. She nodded and stepped outside. As she walked to her car, she glanced back one last time. The house glowed with warmth, filled with the love and unity she had once risked losing. Now, all she could do was try to protect it, even from a distance. Over the next year, Erica dedicated herself to rebuilding her life. She poured herself into her career, volunteered at local shelters, and continued therapy. Her interactions with Mark and the kids were infrequent but civil. Slowly, glimmers of warmth returned. At Jenna's suggestion, Erica began writing letters, sharing memories, regrets, and small pieces of her heart without asking for anything in return. Then, one day, an envelope arrived. It was from Miles. Thanks for your letter, Mom. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I'm glad you're trying. It was short, but it was enough. Erica knew the path to redemption would be long, and she was ready to walk it, one step at a time.